Have you ever wondered where your tap water comes from? It comes from the huge tankers that have stored water in them. This movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a lower concentration is known as diffusion. Then from where does water come in tankers? Well, when transferring water from a large water body to these tankers require force. This process can be facilitated with the help of a motor. This movement of water from a lower concentration to a higher concentration or working against gravity is known as active transport. So basically, we will be talking about active transport in cells and their types in this video today. When a cell membrane moves molecules or ions uphill against a concentration gradient, or uphill against an electrical or pressure gradient, the process is called active transport. At times, a large concentration of a substance is required in the intracellular fluid, even though the extracellular fluid contains only a small concentration. This situation is true for potassium ions. On the other hand, it is important to keep the concentrations of other ions very low inside the cell, even though their concentrations in the extracellular fluid are high. This situation is for sodium ions. Now there must be some energy sources to cause the excess movement of potassium ions to the inside of cells and the excess movement of sodium ions to the outside of cells. Just like we gave an example of an electric motor. Here is where active transport jumps in. Some examples of substances that are actively transported through at least some cell membranes include sodium, iron, amino acids, hydrogen, iodide, calcium, chloride, urate ions, potassium, and sugars. You can remember these by a simple mnemonic. C as hiccups. S for sodium. I for iron. A for amino acids. H for hydrogen. I for iodide. C for calcium. C again for chloride. U for urate ions. P for potassium. And lastly S for sugars. Now, active transport is divided into two types according to the source of the energy used to facilitate the transport: primary active transport and secondary active transport. In primary active transport, the energy is derived directly from the breakdown of adenosine triphosphate, ATP, or some other high-energy phosphate compound. In secondary active transport, the energy is derived secondarily from the energy that has been stored in the form of ionic concentration differences of secondary molecular or ionic substances. This is between the two sides of a cell membrane, created originally by primary active transport. In both cases, transport depends on carrier proteins that penetrate through the cell membrane, as it is for facilitated diffusion. But the carrier proteins for active transport are slightly different from facilitated diffusion. This is because it is capable of imparting energy to the transported substance to move it against the electrochemical gradient. But we are not done with the types of active transport here. In the next sections, we will be discussing both of the types. So, stay tuned.
Ditch the hefty textbooks and embrace the convenience of learning on the go. Our interactive video content keeps you engaged, making learning medicine enjoyable